This episode of the Cost of Living Abroad pod is brought to you by Safety Wing Nomad Insurance. This week I sat down with Josh from Josh on the Move. We break down the rising costs in Thailand, compare it to Vietnam, and dig into what's really going on in the news about Thailand. Stick around to the end. Josh reveals how he grew his YouTube channel from under 1,000 subscribers to over 16,000 in just 1 year. Welcome to Cost of Living Abroad. What's the cost difference between back home in Redden versus Phuket for your standard breakfast, lunch, and dinner? Like what you spend on feeding yourself in a day?
I would actually say that this might surprise some that it's comparable because where I'm at, I don't have a full kitchen set up and I'm quite lazy in that sense. I would rather go out and get some food, put down my laptop, maybe spend a bit more than what I would if I was getting some food and cooking it myself. Considering I spend nearly the same amount here as I do back home, yet back home I would be eating in 90%, whereas here I'm eating out 90%. I think that shows the big difference there in cost. I would be spending around here somewhere between 15 and 20 English pounds a day. So what we're looking at, maybe like late 20s to early 30 US dollars.
Okay, so that's pretty high. That's like, what is it, $800, $900 a month, something like that?
Yeah, most people get surprised by my food bill. In fact, on the video I'd done in Da Nang of my cost of living there, the amount of comments I had from people saying, whoa, that's way too expensive, like you're getting ripped off. It's like, no, it's not. It's not too expensive. It's not a rip-off because I'm always aware that I spend a disproportionate amount of my expenses on food each month. I like to eat well. I eat a lot of meat. I eat a lot of fresh fruit, veg. I eat quite a lot of food throughout the day. And for me, that's just an expense that no matter where I am on the planet, it will always be a high expense. And I'm quite content with that. I cut back in other ways.
What do you spend rent on, what's your budget for living expenses in Thailand and how does it vary compared to when you're in, say, Vietnam or other places in South?
In terms of value for money, Vietnam is the best place I've been, full stop, not in Southeast Asia, anywhere I've been. The value for money that you get in terms of accommodation in Vietnam is better. I would probably argue the same goes for food and most things in Vietnam. But in terms of accommodation, I would probably be wanting to spend between like $500 to $700 in Vietnam for like a nice place, bearing in mind I'm going there for a short period. If you're going for a longer period, you're going to get a much better deal than that. And then in Thailand, depending on where I am, I would hope to pay the same, but it's very unlikely I would be. Like the place I'm in right now is about $800 US a month. And I'm sure if I was going to be here 6 or 12 months, I could negotiate that down, but I'm only doing it month by month currently.
Is it like a one-bedroom condo in Phuket, or what are the details?
One-bedroom condo, separate bedroom, separate living space. The living space isn't huge. The bedroom has a nice king-size bed, big wardrobes, nice, clean, spacious bathroom, separate kitchen area for $800 per month. It's worth noting down that if you were to come here during the high season, you're going to look to pay a fair bit more than that. Yeah, fair bit more.
I have a Google Sheet, CSL, like XSL, like spreadsheet that I make that's like a cost of living calculator. And it's basically so that you can like plug in your US dollar number. So we could take like Da Nang, Vietnam, and then like type in Phuket or whatever. And this is based on like crowdsourced information. And you can compare like any two places in the world, right? And it's I don't know if that's true. This says the cost of living is 72% higher in Phuket than in Da Nang, and it will compare like rent prices, etc. So I put together a spreadsheet that I call my like cost of living calculator, and it takes the data, like the number from that website, and you can put in your standard monthly expenses back home in the US or like your UK expenses in US dollars, and then it like spits out a number for like the comparison from like Vietnam versus Thailand versus whatever. And it's updated pretty regularly. It still kind of blows me away that like Vietnam is like as you say, like it's literally as cheap as anywhere in the world.
About the pros and cons, I think that in terms of, I actually mentioned this in one of the videos I've done, is I think Da Nang is great for living. I think if I was going on a holiday, there would be better places I would choose to go, because in terms of things to do, there's more things to do elsewhere. And on a holiday, that's kind of what you want to do. You want to fill it with activities. You want to, or at least I would want to be doing things, plenty of options at least. And it's not like you'd be bored in Da Nang. It's that there's not as much to do if you're looking for just tons of activities in that sense. However, you are getting the cost, you are getting the people, you are getting a great location, you are getting the ocean right there. So there's pros and cons to everywhere, and I do think you have to, if you're considering making the move, have to think, what am I willing to give up? It's not necessarily about what you want to have. You need to be thinking about what you are willing to give up, because no country has it all, and Vietnam is no exception. Thailand is no exception. Australia, UK is no exception.
Yeah.
I, for one, at this period in my life, would rather have the things that Southeast Asia provides me over the things that the UK provides me for the majority of my year. However, I do eventually things from the UK when I'm away for long enough. Not many things, but just two things. Getting a little bit of a fix of that. Do you want to do that? Do you want to visit your home country? Do you want to spend some time there each year, or are you happy with parting ways with that and going the other way forever? Do you really hate your country, or do you hate your way of life? Because I hear about that a lot, and I see a ton of videos. You'll never really see me shit on the UK in the sense of, yeah, there's a lot of things I don't like, and I'll talk about them, but I'll never say the country is just a bad country because it was where I was born. It's where I'm from. It's where most of my family are, and it's also a country that has a lot of good things, but it just has some bad things that every country has, and it's just about looking at that and seeing what you really want, and just being honest with yourself of like, right, am I willing to give up a little bit of the more traditional sense of hygiene of what I'm used to? Am I willing to give up the little bit of order in the traffic because I want to just keep the traffic flowing, albeit you might have somebody coming from the left on a scooter, from the right on a scooter. You might have someone beeping, someone carrying a beam pole from a construction site across 6 lanes of traffic. You know, you can't have both. You can't have orderly traffic and never any accidents or incidents at the same time as you want freedom and less rules, or a few less enforced rules.
I use Safety Wing's Essential Plan every time I travel around Southeast Asia to film this show. And not just for medical stuff. You also get up to $500 per luggage item lost, $3,000 if your checked luggage disappears, $5,000 for trip interruptions. I mean, this stuff can come in super handy if my camera equipment or recording gear goes missing, or if I get stuck and have to reschedule an episode. And if there's travel delays, they do cover you for up to $100 a day in your hotel. And this is on top of all the medical insurance. If it sounds good to you, use this QR code over my shoulder to sign up now, or check the link pinned in the comments and at the top of the descriptions for this episode. Now let's get back.
You know, it makes me think of certain states in America, less so as much, but definitely in like the 70s and the 80s and the 90s, and like when I was a kid growing up, the sort of freest states, like freedom and whatever, they're also the most dangerous, right? Like that's just part of it. Like no motorcycle helmets, less laws, less whatever. Like it's that whole idea of like, being on the frontier, the Wild West is dangerous. It's literally dangerous, but it's also that feeling of freedom, right? That I'm sure you felt that feeling driving on a motorbike somewhere in Thailand and Vietnam, wherever, and it's real. That's definitely part of it.
It makes me feel fucking alive, man. It makes me feel alive, and it's a big part of it. I don't like being micromanaged, like every movement and everything, and I think that's a huge appeal that I think probably deep down a lot of the guys that come to this part of the world, maybe we realize, maybe we don't. I don't think I could quite put my finger on what I loved about this part of the world for a long time, but without doubt, it's the not being micromanaged, not being like every last thing. I'm not getting a ticket for just going 32 and a 30, like 1 second that I accidentally done. It's just that sense of freedom that I feel here that I don't feel back in the UK.
Let's wrap up the monthly budget comparison, because I think that I do still think, for me, like you're saying, I'm proud to be a Canadian. I love a lot of things about Canada. I had many fantastic years in multiple different cities in Canada. But at the end of the day, the biggest motivation for me was cost of living. It was just a simple numerical comparison that like doing the same job in this part of the world, I could have a much better quality of life for me and now for my family. So what's your like overall, what you spend in a month in Thailand and then what the sort of equivalent would cost you back home an hour outside of London?
Well, let's put some of the biggest expenses I have. Let's say then I would spend around 800, 800 US dollars, maybe 600 to 800 on food. And then on my accommodation, I would spend around 800 to around 800 on average US dollars on accommodation here in Southeast Asia. And then in terms of my scooter rental, I average between 100 and 120 pounds, which I believe is like somewhere in the region of 130 to 160 US dollars. And then a few little bits in between that. Maybe you're looking at probably in Thailand somewhere like 1,500 to 1,800 English pounds. Currently in Phuket, that cost would come down if I was in somewhere like Hua Hin, but that is the cost currently here. In Vietnam, that was coming down quite a bit. If I was to live this same way in the UK, it would probably cost me two to three times that same amount, and then I would need to be working a lot more to fund that. So to fund the same lifestyle, I would need to be working a lot more and then earn more to be able to spend more, but have less time.
You put the number on it. The number is 1,800 pounds, which is a little bit under $2,500 US. And then at home, you would probably spend 2 to 3 times that, 5,000 to maybe 7,500. We're at about 2,500 a month in Da Nang, and at home in Toronto, I think it would be at least sort of in the 6,000 to 7,000 range, if not more, because some things are so far out of whack, right? Like, the equivalent of like the $40 scooter would be like probably going to be $1,000 to $1,500 a month to have a car, insurance, gas. Like so it is hard to compare those things. But people do live still in Southeast Asia on $1,000 a month. You can. YouTube obviously loves to push out in the algorithm videos like that, the under $1,000. It's a whole niche in itself. But I think that, as a single traveler nomad, it's just like, it's exactly how we started this conversation. For $2,500, your quality of life here is phenomenal. If, as you're saying too, you're spending less hours a week online working, it's really hard to measure that kind of quality cost, right? And I had the same way. How do I measure the fact that I spend hours more every single day with my kids? What is that worth, right? Like literally.
Yeah. And it's a really, really good point. It's like, the quality of life is the big driver, because the cost is one thing, but the cost versus quality of life, I think that's the important factor. Because like you say about the under $1,000 a month, I've done it. Would I do it again? No. Like, would I want to do it again? No, but I've done it. Could I do it again? Yeah, I probably could. It wouldn't be awful, but it just wouldn't be great. It would cut out a lot of the things that I like doing. And that is a huge plus point for me. It's like, the cost of living, but it's what I get for the cost of living.
Let's dive in now into like sort of what we touched on just in conversation before, but more specifically, like the pros and the cons, that, the things that pull you towards specific regions or maybe push you away from home or what you're fed up with about. So let's start with Thailand in particular, and Phuket and Chuang and the places you mentioned being drawn to. What are sort of the, aside from cost of living, 2 or 3 things that really keep you coming back to that area, to that spot?
Yeah, sure. Good question. One is the weather. And although at this time of the year it's hot, humid, there is still, like, it rained for about half an hour here in Phuket earlier today. And for the next couple of hours, the air was cooler, the humidity was down, and then we're still getting some sunshine each day, and well, most days. And then some days it's sunny for most of the day. Look, like, hot and humid isn't for everyone, and I do think that that is both a pro and a con. Some days it is intense, and some days, as you'll know, like in Da Nang at the minute, I've heard it's like really hot and humid. Yeah, but it's like, can you tolerate that? And also, it's not like that all the time. It's like, yeah, there's that side. But coming from the UK, the weather's fucking terrible, man. It's like it's it's not good. It's just not good at all.
My God. I called my parents the other day and they said they were with their friends. They were having dinner on their like the patio, like terrace in front of their house in Toronto. On May 31st, it was 10 degrees and they were all wearing their jackets.
It's not about that. It's not about that. So yeah, that's a huge part of it for me, because if you're from the UK or if you've never been, or if you know a little bit about it, you know, majority of the time it's grey. It's never like so cold like you would get in some parts of the northern hemisphere, like Scandinavian countries or certain parts of Russia or certain parts of the US and Canada. It still gets cold, but the flip side is it doesn't really get that hot either. So you have this middle ground where it usually rains, it's usually overcast, and it's usually not warm enough to go out in just shorts and t-shirt. In the winter, it doesn't snow that much. It's just like an averagely bad place to have weather. It's just like the weather just generally is. When it is good, it's great. When when the sun's shining, it's a nice clear day, whether it be cold or hot in the summer or cold and clear day in the winter. It's beautiful. It is. Our countryside is some of the best in the world, but the weather is a huge negative for me, and the weather in Southeast Asia is a huge plus. Outside of the cost of living, as we mentioned, just that sense of freedom that you have here. Like, I do always try and ride my scooter with a helmet. I'm not perfect. Sometimes I'll hop on and I'll be sweaty and I can't be bothered, whatever. But I do always try to. But that sense of, if you don't want to, like, yeah, you might get a fine, but you're getting a fine because it's illegal and against the law, but they're also not gonna, you can still go about your day, you can still just crack on, and it's kind of like that. You just have a sense of freedom, and if you're only going to the shop, you're probably going to be fine. And you know what, yeah, you may not be allowed to, but no one's going to judge you if you do or don't as well. Like, you're kind of able to live and let live within, you know, some constraints in terms of just being respectful. And then other elements of meeting people that you probably wouldn't meet if you were just in a small circle back home, or if you are still in the same friendship groups or the same area you grew up. You tend to have met the people that you will have met, and people tend to be doing things with their lives or very comfortable and settled. And if you are someone that has different goals or different vision or different idea of life, sometimes you may not think the same, you might not have the same conversation, so you feel a little bit less fulfilled, and that is a huge part of it for me as well. And then another pro is, like, I love training in the heat. I've had surgery in my left shoulder. I've torn my meniscus in my right knee. I've torn my labrum in my right shoulder. And, you know, in the winter months and when it's cold, even in the like months when it's just like 15 degrees, my body doesn't feel that good. And being here in the warmer climate, I feel a lot looser. I can train and I can be active, and yeah, it might be hot, but my joints don't feel like they belong to a 95-year-old geriatric patient.
Okay, I need to have a follow-up question on that one, because I was one of the real like draws for me about Southeast Asia, in particular in Vietnam when I first came, is that when I was a bit younger, I was really serious about rock climbing. I was just like, it was one of my full-on passions. I loved it. You know, every waking minute I'd be either at the gym or planning my next trip. And then I shredded my meniscus. Like, I tore it twice really badly. The second time I had to have basically just have my whole knee scraped out. But I had it done in Saigon, and I had a pretty good experience. So what are your experiences of healthcare back home versus have you had injuries in Thailand? Like, I know you do Muay Thai pretty seriously, right?
I'm a hobbyist. I'm not serious about it compared to any of these guys. But I'm serious in terms of my interest. I'm not serious in terms of my abilities. Yeah.
I didn't say I was a pro rock climber. I just said I was passionate.
Yeah, I want to make that clear before anyone lines me up with some elite fucking fighter that
Ever had an injury in Thailand or somewhere else and had to go to the hospital, gone through the system?
Yeah, actually, I'm still nursing a bit of a toe injury. I kicked someone a little bit wrong last year, and I thought I broke my toe. and it was causing me some problems. And I went and got X-ray and had a really, really good experience in a Thai hospital. Actually, I went in, and in fact, let me take you back to the start. I emailed someone, they got back to me. They said, sure, come in tomorrow. Came in, and from the time I came in to my appointment, I walked in, checked in, got chauffeured. I get from a nurse or with a nurse, and showed me around, showed me where to go, introduced me to the doctor. I explained things. They sent me for an X-ray. I came back, got consulted with the doctor. He explained that luckily I hadn't broken my toe, despite it hurting very bad. And then got discharged, paid the fee. I think it was around 50, either £50 or $50 either way, between 50 and 60 US dollars, somewhere in that region. I was in and out, I believe, in 32 minutes. So yeah, it was a really good experience, really good.
What would the experience be like back home? If you had similar injuries, or when you've had similar injuries back home, what's the experience like?
Look, like we don't get the NHS for free, because if we pay taxes, if we pay national insurance, like it contributes towards it. So it's not free, but it's as near to free as you can get. So it would be hard to complain about the NHS, because when you need them, they generally are very good in terms of an emergency situation. In terms of like something life or death there and then, they are very good. In terms of needing something below emergency, it's not the best service. It's not the best procedure and protocol. It's quite difficult and time consuming to get an appointment, to see the right people, and to actually get the help you needed. If I was to, for example, hurt my big toe, or thought I broke a bone, if I was to go into the emergency room, or we call it A&E, accident and emergency, then potentially you would be waiting 4 to 6 hours, maybe 8 hours on a busy day, just to see someone. And then you would have to go through the X-ray procedure and everything else. So you're talking about a lengthy time, albeit you would come out and you would have no bill to pay. So there is a pro and con there. Personally, for me, in terms of the experience, I would rather pay that bit of money. However, if that fee was £5,000, maybe I would be saying something different. Maybe I'd be happy to wait that duration. I've also had to see doctors for other things, like a prescription at different stages, or want some medication for one thing or another. And it's been a really good experience. Again, you do pay, but the fee is very reasonable, affordable, and the biggest thing for me is the time it takes is street.
The care is like tiered here or whatever, right? So there's like public hospitals, private clinics, private hospitals, etc. But it's all about depending on if you have international travel insurance, or if you don't, you're paying out of pocket. Do you do travel insurance? Like, do you have Safety Wing or anything like that, or you just go for it?
Yeah, I use Safety Wing. I have travel insurance. I'd never be without it. And I think, particularly if you're in the older demographic, like it's a no-brainer. I know it might be a little bit more costly with each year that goes by, but it's you can't be without it. It's one of them things. It's a bit like, I know, it's a bit like a raincoat. You want to have it and not need it, rather than need it and not have it.
Let's talk about, how do you make money online? How do you make money while you're living abroad?
Yeah, so I think we're in the age of too many options, because you'll hear somebody say, I do e-commerce, I do drop shipping, I do this, I do that, I'm a closer for a sales company. There's a lot of options, and I think it can be a little bit overwhelming, and I still find it quite overwhelming to hear of all these different things. And I think it's about choosing what you're probably good at, what you can get paid for, and what is available to you, and just sticking with one or two things, or two or three things. So for me personally, I got my personal trainer qualification 10 years ago. Since then, I've done infinite amount of further education on so many different things in the fitness space, and more recently, over the past like 5-6 years, that's been in biomechanics and like injury rehab. So I just bridged the gap and paired up my fitness coaching with like movement and biomechanics, and that is my main source of income. I help people look good whilst helping their body move well as well. I work with people one-to-one with coaching clients, and soon I think I'm going to launch more of like a general program, because my audience is now bigger. I've got like 16,000 subs on YouTube, I believe now. So now my audience is bigger. I'd like to open that to more people that don't need to pay a premium to work with me one-to-one. So what's
your sort of dream day. You know, if it's in Phuket or Choang or wherever it is, give me and the audience a walkthrough of like the dream day in the life of Josh on the move.
Yeah, so I mean, I'd love to say I have the biggest routine in the world. I don't. I try and get up and do something productive in the mornings. I think getting out sooner than later always makes me feel good, no matter what that is, whether it's a walk, going down to the calf, going and training, whatever. But a dream day, like a real dream day. Let's get on. Let's get up. The sun's shining. We go out for a little bit of a walk. Go get some food. Go train. Come back. Do a dream day. I'm not working. Maybe like. And chill out for a bit. Maybe watch a bit of YouTube. Then go out and some sports are on, and I watch some sports. I have a couple beers. I chill out, watch the sunset. Job's good. Like have some good food. Come back home. I'm a simple man. Like yeah, don't need too much else for that for me. And a lot of people separate that. They think like you got to be the health guy. You can't ever drink, or you got to be the party guy. I don't party too much, but I do like a beer. So in my dream day, I'd be training in the morning and I'd be drinking in the evening.
I just want to thank you so much for taking your time out, man, for taking an hour and a half out of your day, talking to me, coming on the Cost of Living Abroad pod. For everyone watching, listening out there, it's Josh on the move. All of his socials, YouTube, Instagram will be linked below, and then I'll put up his channel and video over my shoulder.
Thanks so much for watching this week's episode of the Cost of Living Abroad pod, brought to you by Safety Wing Nomad Insurance. You can find more episodes of the pod over my shoulder, or check out thecostoflivingabroad.com right here. Use the link below pinned in the comments or at the top of the description, or just click and capture this QR code over my shoulder.